Welcome to this explainer on Leviticus, the way to holiness. We're diving right into this ancient, incredibly detailed blueprint for how mortal humans can actually attempt to survive, and even thrive, living right next door to a perfectly pure deity. I know this text can feel dense and ancient, but trust me, it is a completely fascinating system once you break down what's actually going on. First things first, we have to talk about what holiness actually means in this context. It's really not just about moral perfection or being a good person. It's this intense, almost dangerous purity. Honestly, think of it less like a personality trait and more like a highly radioactive core or a modern tech clean room. It's incredibly powerful and good, but it demands strict, unwavering protocols if you're going to get anywhere near it. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll look at the problem of holiness, the rules of the altar, clean versus unclean, the Day of Atonement, and finally, living as a holy people. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The problem of holiness and the incredibly high stakes in the tabernacle. Moving on to Part 2. Rules of the altar and the actual mechanics of atonement. So with the tabernacle placed literally right in the middle of the camp, interacting safely with the divine presence required some intensely strict categorization. Instead of getting bogged down in the logistics of slaughtering animals, notice the brilliant structure of it all. You've got the burnt offering for total dedication, the grain offering for when you just want to say thank you, the peace offering for fellowship, and then the sin and trespass offerings for restitution. Basically, it's a highly formalized, structured way to say, I messed up, and make things right. The protocol here is meticulous. You have to bring an unblemished animal, entirely of your own free will, and physically lay your hand on its head to identify with it. Blood represents the life force itself, making it the primary mechanism for atonement. The fat, that is always reserved for the Lord. And here's a crucial detail. Every meat offering has to be seasoned with the salt of the covenant, and the fire on the altar must burn perpetually. It literally cannot ever go out. And what happens if you break these protocols? Well, the stakes are deadly real. Chapter 10 gives us this chilling story of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. They decide to offer unauthorized, strange fire before the Lord, and instantly, divine fire devours them. It's a terrifying proof of concept. You absolutely do not mess around in the divine clean room. Which brings us to Part 3. Clean versus unclean, and how to navigate the unavoidable messiness of life. These boundaries of holiness extend straight to the dinner table. To be considered clean, a land animal has to chew the cud and have a cloven hoof. Seafood requires both fins and scales, but the bans get incredibly specific. We're not just talking camels and swine here, but obscure creatures like the ossifrage, the cuckoo, and bats. Think about it. This diet acts as a daily cognitive exercise. It forces the people to make conscious, deliberate distinctions every single time they sit down to eat. But beyond food, ritual impurity stems from the unavoidable daily realities of human biology. Things like childbirth, bodily fluids, skin diseases. The text gets intensely diagnostic here. The priest basically acts as an ancient health inspector. They're looking for a highly specific, bright spot of leprosy on a bald forehead, or even fretting leprosy, like mildew, breaking out in the plaster walls of a house. Now, here is the absolute crucial takeaway. Being unclean is not a sin. It's simply the reality of living in a mortal body. It just means you're temporarily incompatible with the pure space of the tabernacle. To re-enter, you just need a waiting period, a good wash, and sometimes a small offering to clear your status. That's it. All right, Part 4, the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. This is the ultimate reset. So, despite all those daily personal roles, invisible spiritual pollution inevitably builds up in the camp over the course of a year. Which brings us to the climax of the whole text. How exactly do you reboot the spiritual status of millions of people, all at the exact same time? Chapter 16 outlines this brilliant four-step procedure. First, the high priest strips off his glorious, ornate robes and puts on plain linen garments. Then, lots are cast over 2 goats. Goat number 1 is sacrificed to literally cleanse the physical sanctuary with its blood. Then, in a profoundly visual moment, the high priest lays both hands on a live second goat, confesses all the nation's iniquities over it, and a designated person leads the scapegoat away, physically bearing their sins out into an uninhabited wilderness. Finally, Part 5, Living as a Holy People, the Holiness Code and Morality. Having secured the physical tabernacle and the ritual purity of the camp, the text pivots dramatically. It turns to everyday society. The powerful mandate to be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy, grounds their entire social ethic. Holiness shifts from just a ritual requirement to a moral imperative. They're commanded to actually mirror the character of the deity they worship. The Holiness Code shows us that this whole system isn't just about avoiding mildew or eating the right animal. It is about profound social justice and fair economics. You don't harvest the very edges of your fields. You leave those corners for the poor and the stranger. You pay your hired workers daily, before the morning comes. You don't curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind. You use honest weights and measures in your business, and you treat the immigrant and the stranger as if they were born right there among you. And tucked right smack in the middle of these agricultural and economic laws is the true moral center of the book, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a radical concept of profound empathy, and it echoes throughout all of subsequent human history, originating right here. But alongside that love, they are given incredibly strict boundaries to prevent assimilation into the surrounding nations. The text strictly prohibits incest, adultery, and practices like giving seed to Molech. And this separation, it extends all the way down to the microscopic level of blending categories. You can't mate diverse cattle, you can't sow a field with mingled seed, you can't even wear a garment made of mixed linen and wool. Everything has to remain distinctly itself. And wrapping all this up, chapter 23 restructures their entire experience of time around the feasts of the Lord. Starting with Passover in the first month, counting 50 days to a new grain offering, all leading up to this massive seventh month packed with the blowing of trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. This entire system forces the society to regularly hit pause, rest, and completely reorient their lives around these rhythmic, sacred reminders of exactly who they are. As we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. We might not worry about diagnosing leprosy on a wool garment today, or checking menus to make sure we aren't eating an ossifrage. But how deeply ingrained are these ancient concepts of purity, contamination, and social boundaries in our modern world? What are the unclean categories of our culture today, and how do we treat the people who fall into them? Thanks for exploring the incredible mechanics of Leviticus with me.